Okay, so for the sake of technicalities, this is all legally bullshit, but it all started when my elder brother Darius got married. I mean, good on him for being alternative and all, but when he decided to have his Black Veil Brides themed wedding with everything undead and emo themed, I don't even know. I feel like the literal witch doctor chanting in the corner was a bit too much. Is that just me? Should I even be entitled to a say in my brother's wedding? So, Darius decided to marry a drag queen, good on him. Be incredible, be too large for life, be all that and more. But when your bride's younger brother, sister creature, whatever you want to call yourself, comes up to me and asks if I can feel the souls of the dead hanging in the air tonight, I'm a head out, bro. And that was only the beginning. Okay, so our family were farmers, right? We toiled the land for a living, and we don't like being called rednecks. Not that this should affect the way the story goes or anything, but it may add some context that when the two bloodlines married together, suddenly everyone was family. I may have only one elder brother, and Darius may have just married only one drag queen, but once that wedding happened, the whole damn palace might as well moved in. We had queens coming out of our ears, enough crowns and glitter to royally induct a whole army, and yes, the witch doctor came too. And you can call me the palace jester for all the fool I was, because you know what my first reaction was? Well, it wasn't let's drown this place in holy water for a start, nor was it I should probably stay away from this creature for a second, despite having this thing come up and give themselves the most creepiest introduction ever. No, my first reaction to all of this was, family is family, so you might as well get to know them all. And get to know them I did. And I don't know whether this was because we were all a similar age and all. I mean, who even knows under the massive nature mask Philo liked to wear? And yep, that was their name, Philo. I could never get out of them what gender they were. When I asked for their pronouns, they just hissed at me and rolled away, muttering and grumbling under their breath. But Philo seemed to like me, or like to hang around me at least, and for the kingdom's fool that I was, I hung around them too. I mean, they were still a friggin' weirdo, what with their long spiders looking legs, and the way they had more sticks and earth and trees and plants poking out of them like even more legs, but they had good banter occasionally. So when that fateful day came along, when Philo and I were hanging from the branches of a great apple tree, and Philo dared me to prank one of me dad's old cows, I barely hit an eyelash. Mate, you're so full of it, I remember saying one day. Philo had been trying to come at me with their whole become one with nature spiel, and how they do all their rites underneath the full moon to maintain their casting with the trees or whatever. I didn't think too much of their shenanigans. They're probably just doing it for the shock factor. Stultus Valentes, thou knowest not of which you trivialize. A pair of large pale eyes stared out from underneath the grass and earth at me. Philo's whites of their eyes practically took up their whole eye sockets. I don't know what's going on there, but if their skin tone is anything like their brother's, there's no way that's natural. Mate, you probably can't even do any real magic. I could probably achieve the same as you if I put my mind to it. The twigs of grass and other bits of Philo's armour bristled in chagrin. Somewhere underneath all these bits and pieces, I would like to think there was a Philo bristling under there too. Do it then. A baleful gaze peered out through and under their oversized headdress. Go alter that cow. Pray show these divine capabilities of thee if I think thou starst so much. I had to stifle back a snort at this. Betwixt all the these and thys and thous, this character was delusional. Philo was still staring at me though. Or pray, render thyself incapable. Okay, I really couldn't hold back a snort at this. I don't know what Philo thought they were on, but they were full of it regardless. So I decided to humour them. And pray, tell us the price of this, I mockingly replied, amused. A dark talon with elongated pointed ends started reaching for my skin. Your pancreas. I swatted the hand away. Alright. Knowing Philo, they probably would break into my room under the light of the full moon or some shite reaching for my pancreas. And besides, if I was going to do this, I was going to do it properly. So I waited until Philo wasn't around before considering my options. If there was any way I was going to successfully alter a cow, it was going to have to be hypnosis. I couldn't possibly imagine being able to hold a cow's attention for long any other way. Well, except for maybe drugs, that is. And it wasn't just cows my dad farmed either, so perhaps that might not have been such a ridiculous option. Yet when the time came to actually try and sit in front of a cow, waving bouquets of mysterious and elusive substances around, I'm not sure what I expected, but it was anticlimactic to say the least. The beast just stood there not really doing much, tongue hanging ridiculously long out of its skull. Time to up the ante. Buying myself time, I decided to start hanging out with every weird kid in school. Social rejects? Sure. Spirit walkers? Even better. Art nerds? It depends on the art nerd, but some of the crazy ones were all in. I mean, our town was already out in the middle of nowhere, so it's not like we had any shortage on strange folk. With the promise of illicit substances by the bucket load, it was enough to bring in everyone who may have had reservations. We ended up sitting in a circle most days, holed up in me dad's barn trying to play Dungeons and Dragons, illicit substances hotboxing the life out of the unfortunate beast, with the art students trying to infuse the poor thing with glitter. It was an interesting time, and I was hoping that by getting all my alternative in one room, perhaps the cow would start to pick up on it. You know, that thing's not really gonna change much as long as it stays 100% cow. Oh right, need I forget, that was Gene. His whole family were New Age spiritualists, so he rebelled by screwing around with dodgy science practices. Everyone else was into crystals, Gene was into other things. Think of a reincarnated Victor Frankenstein in a school uniform, with about the morals and grey hair to match. You reckon you could speed up the process somewhat? I was already regretting asking. One can make no such promises, but one can always try. With a considerable lack in consenting volunteers for his various scientific schemes and practices, this cow might as well been a drug-induced gift from one of his family's many heavens to him. I mean, he was already rolling up his sleeves and putting on gloves. I didn't want to look too closely at what Gene thought he was getting up to, but I must say, with the amount of amphetamines and narcotics being waved around was definitely having effect. All the spiritual kids were of course circling around praying and blessing the cow, because everything forbid some science outcast ends up compromising the beast's path to divine spirituality and enlightenment. We weren't able to wave around the drugs quite so much after that though. My dad's stash was starting to run a bit dry, and when you've got good old Gene old Frankenstein over here waving around his needles and other bits and pieces, you don't really want to be compromising that too much. But we still had fun. We just had to go about it in a few more creative ways. Unfortunately though, after a while our hotbox summer soon had to come to a close. Falau was still creeping around making their dark mutterings and generally being shifty as all heck, and I still wasn't too sure about the old pancreas business. One afternoon though, one of the very last days of our summer, when the last of the drugs had run dry and all of Gene's infuses and needles had all but exhausted themselves, I knew it was time. It was either now or never. I waited till pretty much everyone had gone home and called Falau over proudly. Behold, one altered cow. There was a very awkward silence. Falau looked at me. Falau looked at the cow. Then back at me again. What on earth did you do? The cow, or what used to be the cow, looked distinctly like a creature that had been created in the likeness of second-hand gossip and small-town whisperings as to what an imagined cow could possibly be. It was very colourful, most likely a result of being subjected to all the art kids, and in the dim light of the barn, I wasn't entirely sure that it wasn't changing colours in the light. It had dreadlocks perched like several ill-happened spiders, with rasta beads and flax grass extensions, and its expression was definitely otherworldly. You know I was never actually serious, right? Falau, with your dark mutterings and the way you carry on, I can never actually know anything. And look at what we've done to this poor cow. I don't know how we're going to get rid of it now. How you're going to get rid of it. I never had any involvement in this. You did so, you dared to do it in fear of my life and pancreas. I took a step forward to try and brush off some of the glitter off the cow's side. Maybe if we both scrubbed really hard. Bloop. Falau? Falau was already halfway out the door, but stopped to turn back to me. Their eyes widened when they saw what had happened. It seems all the genetic tamperings and spiritual educatings on various different paths to enlightenment seemed to have made some difference on the cow. The very flesh of the thing was hardly a solid substance at all. My hand had morphed right into it. What the actual heck? I tugged on my hand and it came out glowing, covered in some slimy gooey substance, and then, like the idiot fool that I was, I put it back in again. Bloop! This time my hand submerged all the way out to my arm. I could feel the cow's organs and blood vessels all squishing around, and its innards were uncomfortably warm. Morbid curiosity overtook me, and I think Falau too, because even they had come all the way back from the door, just to see what was happening. And then it happened. I struck bone. The cow freaked and tried to jerk itself upright. My hand, that up until now had just been squishing around in its innards, got sucked all the way in. And then the rest of me too. I was surrounded by the glittery, squishy cow, and that's quite honestly the most awkward, uncomfortable feeling of my life. How would you feel to come to your senses one day peering out the body of something that wasn't even your own? Bruh, I'm a shaman, and even I can see that this whole situation needs holy water. Falau was aiming at me the barrel of an old worn-out shotgun. I could hardly hear what was being said though, due to this cow's ginormous beating heart pounding just behind my forehead. No way! I started. What if by killing this cow, Falau ended up killing me too? At this point, it's a price I'm willing to take, Falau stated grimly, almost as if reading my thoughts. They fired the gun. I heard the most terrible explosion reverberating all through my senses, and then my whole world went black. Later that night at the dinner table, things were very quiet. I appreciate Falau cooking dinner for us all tonight, but I feel like we all need to have a talk, my father said sternly. Picking up his soup spoon, he pointed it around at each and every single one of us. I came home today and found out that my entire drug stash has been cleaned out completely bare. There is not a single leaf, chemical or pill left in this entire place, and I know the police haven't been round because none of us are sitting behind bars. A few of us shifted in our seats looking uncomfortable. I prayed on every cow I'd ever eyeballed that he wasn't looking at me specifically. All of a sudden though, Father stopped, choked and screwed up his face before spitting out a softly glowing green bone from his stew. It clinked off the table and rolled around jarringly before quietly melting into the floor. What is wrong with the stew? Is the steak gone bad or something?